Hey guys, and welcome back to another lesson. In this lesson we're going to talk about playing beautiful, lush, big, synth-sounding pads. I'm going to start, as I usually do, with a demonstration, have a listen, and then we'll come back and talk about some of the things I've played. Enjoy! Welcome back. Let's go ahead and break down what you've just heard. I'll say a few things about the chords I've played, why I've played them, and what sort of things you can do to embellish your own playing. So the little piece you've heard is comprised of fairly straightforward and simple progressions in A minor. So you have, for example, an F major to a G major to an A minor. I've switched to a slightly different pad sound just to make things a little bit easier for me in the recording. You've had a D minor to a C major to an F major, a D minor to a G major to an A minor, and at the end you had a D minor to a G major to a C major. Alright, so how do we turn this into something that is more appealing? Well, the first thing is we're gonna, just starting out with simple triads, we're gonna look for the inversions of the triads that minimize the amount of motion between chords. For example, I can play an F major like this, or like this, or like this. Or I can play the G major like this, or like this, or like this. And the A minor like this, or like this, or like this, just by moving the notes around up and down octaves. Now, instead of playing maybe an F to a G to an A minor, I might play an F to an inversion of G to an inversion of A minor. And you can see how the notes don't jump around as much, but stay close together. It's a little bit more apparent when, for example, I'm playing a D minor to a G to an A minor. So I might play, let's say, a D minor to an inversion of G to an inversion of A minor. When playing the chords, you can add the root of the chord in the left hand. We're going to talk about the left hand in a little bit, but I'll just replay it. Let's say D minor to a G major to an A minor. Okay, you're starting to get a little bit more body to your playing. The next step is to incorporate higher degrees. So instead of playing maybe an A minor, you might play an A minor 7. Instead of playing an F major, you might play an F major 7. And instead of playing maybe a G major, you'd play a G major add 2. You might also double notes. So again, instead of maybe playing an A minor 7 like this, you could double the C. Or you could double the C for the F major 7. So now, for example, I can play an F, G, A minor like this. And a D minor 7 to a C to an F major 7. It's already starting to sound pretty lush and big. Now let's talk a little bit more about the left hand. So the simplest thing you can do is simply play the root of the chord you're currently playing. The next step would probably be to double the bass. So instead of just playing a single F, you double it. So an F to a G to an A minor. You might also add the fifth in there, so an F to a G to an A minor. You have to be careful not to add too many notes. Probably you don't want chords in the left hand because they sound too muddy. Once the notes in the lower register get too close together, you start getting muddy sounds, which usually are not a good thing in playing. So you want to space them out as much as possible. Fifths are really pretty much as wide as you would maybe go. Now another variation on this octave or octave with fifth, instead of playing the root up here, you play the ninth, so you increase it by one step. Right, so now I'm getting an F major 9, the G to an A minor 9, and for the D minor I'd get this already sounds a little bit too muddy to my ears, so I honestly wouldn't recommend it, but it's a matter of, I guess, artistic choice. It doesn't work for the C because the C and an F don't really work together. You don't want minor ninth intervals. So you want the upper note to be 2 semitones or maybe even 3 semitones above. So you're stuck with this double bass here and then back to the F. If your hand can stretch, one really great thing you can do is play tenths. So you can play this for the F major, this for the G major, and this for the A minor. Oddly enough, I find that it's easier than, to play tenths with the added fifth in there. I think this works better for the D minors. For the C as well. For the F, actually for all of them, this works pretty well. In fact, these three notes in themselves define the F major chord. So anything else you play up here would be considered a bonus, honestly. For example, I can just play this and play a single note in the right hand. Still sounds pretty good. What else can we think about when we voice or arrange these chords? Well, a few other thoughts. First of all, let's look at this here. This is an F major 7 sus2. So, an F major 7, you sus the chord sus2, so instead of the third you play the second degree, and then you just rearrange the notes. You just double a couple of them and you move them around. And there are a couple of interesting things about this voicing. See, the notes are kind of close together. The other thing is that you get this clustering here in the F chord. So the clustering gives it a little bit of tension, which is kind of nice, and the chord itself is kind of closed. You could play the same chord and open it up. So this is an F major chord with an added 2, and now it's voiced. There's no 7th here, but I could add it. But the point is that this voicing is open. You know, everything is, the notes are spaced far apart. So it gives this open kind of wide sound. And then it's an artistic choice whether you want something that is closed and a little bit clustered, or something that is a little bit wider, you know, in sound and open. So it depends on, maybe you're doing an intro or an outro, or just want to give a feeling of spaciousness to the listener. Really, this would be what I would, this is a classic artistical choice. That is up to you. These clusters are really nice. They really give this modern sound to the chord. So here's this nice way of playing an F major 9 with this cluster up here. Even if you play something like a G major, you can just add the 4th in there to create a nice cluster, even though it's really not part of the chord. It's nicer than playing just the triad. And maybe now you can play, let's do an A minor 11th. See, I'm trying to get clusters in my voicings. So, something to think about, whether you want your chords to be closed, open, and whether you can get these nice clusters in there. I think that I'm going to stop here. I've given you some ideas, some, I hope, food for thought, some things you can copy into your own playing, which is, you know, the best way to learn something. Just copy something that you've heard and that you like, and make it your own. Just play around with it. That's it for now. I hope you've learned something interesting, and I will see you next time.